welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 284. Thank you for joining us. Today, Bonnie and I are joined by Kolbe's own Pam Castor and Emmanuelle Wilhelm to discuss homeschooling with young children. We discuss making this wonderful journey while navigating between flexibility and structure and bringing together everyone in the family, all with the ultimate goal of all of us making it to heaven. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Doing well. Sitting down with a cup of coffee, getting ready for a lovely conversation this morning.
Nice. Sounds good. We're in that time of year now where I'm almost, but not quite ready to switch from cold brew to hot brewed coffee. I'm not there yet.
47 degrees here this morning, so it's definitely getting into the warm coffee mode.
Well, today we're delving into homeschooling children who are closer to the beginning of their educational odyssey than the end, littles and younger elementary age students, discussing the various practicalities and considerations to factor into homeschooling this age range of children. For this conversation, we have with us 2 homeschooling moms who also use their gifts and talents in service of Kolbe Academy families, Pam Castor and Emmanuelle Wilhelm. Hello, you two. Great to have you back with us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to see you guys again. Let's catch up with Pam first, because we first met you and your husband, Adam, who teaches for Kolbe, back in episode 90. That was a while ago. So remind us about you and your background and catch us up since then.
So catch you up. It has been such a long time.
Yeah.
So Adam and I are still working here at Kolbe. We love the Kolbe community. And since that time, we've had a few more of our children join the Kolbe community. So we have 2 high schoolers, 1 middle schooler, 4, 3. I'm losing count here. I have to think. I have a 5th grader. She's a 3rd grader, a 1st grader, and a preschooler. And then we have our youngest who wants to be a preschooler. She's 2. She kind of is like the tag along, wanting to be it. Yeah, so we have a little bit of everything. We've got the whole variety, of, personalized education. We have some kids are doing fully online, some are doing a blend of online and asynchronous, some are doing digital homeschool, and then my littles are doing the traditional homeschool as mom, as the educator. So it's wonderful.
And so when way back in episode 90, you were teaching for the online elementary school at that time, and now you're serving as academic advisor. Will you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a wonderful transition for our family as academic advisor. As I was working with some students doing accountability, I learned that I really loved to work with parents as well, and something I had never done before. And so an opening came and I applied and was able to make that transition from educator to academic advisor and just work with families, guiding them on their homeschool journey, because when we first get started, it can be quite daunting and scary. So I hopefully can ease that fear for families. So
good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, Emmanuelle, we met you in episode 269. So for folks who have not yet listened to that or don't know you yet through your Kolbe work or otherwise, would you please also tell us a bit about yourself and your background and your work for Kolbe?
Well, I'm a mother of 5, and my oldest is in college. He's a Kolbe graduate. I have a senior, I have a sophomore, and I have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader this year. I work for Kolbe in the research department. I'm department chair for the special ed program. And I personally work 3 through 5 resource. And I also have an 8th grade math resource class that I help co-teach. I came to Kolbe when they opened up the program a couple years ago. And my walk into homeschooling was one of reluctance, because I know God called me for a while and I ignored it. And I finally said yes. And a part of it was my just uncertainty of my ability to teach my own children. It's very different teaching your own kids than it is other people's kids for some reason. It's a lot harder and it's more taxing, it's more emotionally involved. And um, I think that was my reluctance. I didn't feel like I was good enough in every aspect of education to be able to do it. But I decided to trust and I did it and I'm glad. And I'm so grateful that I said that yes to the Lord, because I don't think that my kids would be who they are in the way that they've grown virtuously. I think that's my biggest take on. I mean, that's what I looking back, I'm like, I'm so glad. And I have these just like moments where I spend time with my kids. I'm like, this is such a good thing. I mean, more families need to do this. So that's been my work. I mean, I've been kind of where all my kids are full-time online at Kolbe. Prior to this, I did a different program. Before I started working for Kolbe, I had one in Kolbe because I was looking for a high school program that was challenging when it came to their religious education. I was not happy with what I was seeing in the parochial schools. And my son, finishing up this particular program, he knew his faith. He understood it at a level that I didn't understand it in high school. And I saw that Kolbe offered honors theology courses, and I was sold. And it was the best decision I ever made. I mean, the stuff that they expose kids to as far as religious education here at Kolbe, especially at that level, is phenomenal. I mean, I was learning along with my kids, and there's stuff that they know now that I still don't know, that I want to go because I just have no time to really read and to learn for myself because I'm so busy teaching my kids and busy working that, I mean, these are on my to-do list. Like, oh, they're reading St. Augustine's Confession. I'm like, I need to read that. I want to read it. I never read it in high school and all that stuff. And so that's been kind of so we started there, and then I started working, and then I decided to transition all my kids because it just made sense. It made sense for us. And I mean, it's been a great experience. I love the community here. I love all the teachers. We have a great team here, and all the families I've met have been wonderful. So.
Good deal. And I would think in your role, you interact with everybody on all the instructional teams and like go across the grades, and you get to interact with families. So you get to know everybody pretty well. That's neat.
Yes, for sure.
I'd just like to say that I'm really impressed that you actually were able to list off children with grade levels. I have a memory of some of my children when they were young talking with some friends or cousins and things and say, what grade are you in? And it's like, I say this, and mom says this, and so then it ended up being like, well, what math book are you doing? And so they had used math as a guide because otherwise it was all over the place. So very striking that you can list them off there.
Well, I appreciate that, but there are days where I mix my kids' names up, so I don't know.
All right, so let's dive into homeschooling littles and young elementary students, starting with some big picture sort of guiding principles to keep in mind. Let's start with you, Pam. When you think about maybe your younger children or when you were teaching the younger students online, what's big picture for you?
I think big picture, not even just for young students, is for all students, is like ultimate goal at our house. We always come back to like, what is the main purpose for parenting? Like, what do we want our kids to go to? Like heaven, right? That is our main purpose and how we get there. So I think if we keep that in mind, well, okay, if we haven't mastered our multiplication facts, is that going to keep us from heaven? Like, like what is the big picture, here, when we're in the nitty-gritty and we're frustrated, just bringing us back to that. And I think as far as littles, like what is the big picture? What is their job when they're, 3, 4, 5 years old? Their job is to play, to learn, to explore, to start developing a love for learning, a love for who their creator is, our God in heaven, and just those little exposures through the time. So ultimately, what is the big picture to get us to heaven, to love God, and then, start fostering that from our early ages and carrying that through all the way through to high school when we're reading Augustine's, Confessions, and, that we can kind of string that along. That's kind of what I think the big picture would be.
What do you think, Emmanuelle?
I mean, she hit it right on the head. I mean, for sure. I mean, the big picture is the walk towards holiness. I mean, that's your end goal, right? That's what you are focused as a parent when you're taking on your kids' education and you're doing this and you're sacrificing for them every single day to do this. That is what I want for my kids. I want them to be thinkers. I want them to be able to navigate the world and still hold on to their faith and live their faith in what is presented to them today when they walk out there. I mean, I'm not here to in the end, I don't want to completely shelter my kids to where they're never exposed to anything as far as like what's happening in the world. I want them to be taught how to handle it and how to live their faith through it and be able to be a witness to Christ. I mean, that is what my end goal is. And teaching them, through this particular program or any program you choose as far as Catholic education. I mean, that's what you want for them. You want them to develop those skills, and I mean, learning and in education, all the stuff they learn in academics, it coincides. I mean, it goes together, right? Pam, you said it. I mean, loving God and putting Him first.
Okay, so when everyone is little, what does that tend to look like in terms of maybe this is like the beginning of a family's homeschool education? They've got that maybe their oldest child is just beginning school or is just a few years in. Let's talk about kind of what that sort of looks like. I know it's different in every household, but in your experience and in your interactions with families, are there some things that are kind of common or things that suggestions that you would have for families in that particular chapter?
I think that, when you're starting your homeschooling journey, just knowing your children and knowing what their interests are, meeting them wherever they are. And sometimes it depends on the day to day, like moment to moment where they're at. And then kind of just fostering it and guiding that for our littles. Creating routine and structure is super helpful. But I think that there needs to be a balance to know that not every day is going to be structured. It was great actually in our parent partnership meeting that we had about the business of being little. The presenter was talking about how like you're going to have those days where you just don't know. And if you just set your kids up for knowing, like, I love this idea, to be determined. Today is a TBD day because I don't know what we have planned. We've got to go grocery shopping and we've got to go this and we got to do here. Maybe we'll get to the park. It's to be determined. Letting them know ahead of time, the schedule. My kids at our house, Friday becomes like an art Friday. They love art Friday, so they come to expect that, okay, I can get the paints out or we can get this out on Friday. And my goodness, they know their days of the week because they expect Friday to be that day. Or, Thursdays is in our house where we allow like screen time. So we call it like Friday Eve because that's like you can have during rest time, you can have a little bit of screen time during that time. So those routines I think are super important when they're little, just getting started, and meeting them where they're at as far as, um, where they're at for their schoolwork. Is, their sit down work. Maybe this is a particular day you're out late one night, the next day they're tired, working through like maybe one or two problems that are really, really hard and then, putting it at a stop so that they don't perseverate on it. So yeah, meeting them where they're at and setting expectations for the day, I think is helpful, or
Okay.
knowing not to have expectations for the day.
What do you think, Emmanuelle?
I mean, I piggyback off what Pam was saying. For sure, expectations and routine are really important for little kids, and certain kids need that more than others. I think that what I come across a lot, and whenever I talk to parents who are considering, going into Kolbe or homeschooling, I tell them, I said, it's going to be hard at first. Expect chaos. And I think that can lead us to holiness sometimes as a parent, right? Because it's normal when you're taking on that kind of responsibility. It's normal to feel that way and to try and figure out what works for your family, right? For me, I used to teach in the public schools. And so I kind of knew kind of the standards of what was expected for kids and what they needed to know at a certain age. And that helped me kind of figure out what I needed to do with my kids. But I also knew that I had one child who struggled, and that, you know what, we need to do this again. And we need to, knowing that you have that flexibility, right? When it comes to your day and the structure of the day. And there were a lot of days where, I had these lesson plans written out and they looked so beautiful, but half the time it's like, oh, we didn't get to that. We're going to do that next time. Or I need to reteach this, or whoa, my plan just did not work. And knowing that that's okay. I mean, that's what homeschooling is all about. And even in the teaching world, when you're working with kids in a classroom, that happens too. And so, I mean, try not to, I think for me, the biggest advice I'd give for a parent is just take a breath and know, even at the end of the day, if you feel like you're going to cry and it didn't work out, tomorrow's a new day and you try again, and we work through those kind of things. And I know in the beginning, there's just this kind of growth period where when you're learning kind of how to structure your family every single day, but you'll get there. I mean, it starts to become more of a second nature after you've done it for a while.
Yeah, that kind of grace period.
Yes.
Give yourself that room to figure. Yeah, and the word contingency is coming to mind, like contingencies for you have this structure, you have some expectations, you also encounter the reality of a day that is not looking like it's going to go like you expect it to. So you have some contingencies in mind that you can turn to, and that's all okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
It seems like we've got some sort of like virtue in the mean sort of thing here, where you've got the rigidity of the schedule and inflexibility, then pure chaos over on the other side, and it's like navigating this path that's kind of going in between. It does. I mean, not every new homeschooling mother I know is like this, but I remember encountering some which it's like their first child and their child is 4 years old, and it's like, I'm going to homeschool and I'm going to do everything the best. And it's like, whoa, 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 settle down there, mom. You gotta just take it easy here. But usually that just naturally changes by the time you've got four kids that you're homeschooling, because it's like I can't spend that amount of time with each child, I know, but it is an interesting kind of, as you get into it and don't know what to expect and don't know exactly what it's going to look like, to have some flexibility.
I think it's, I've noticed over the years that sometimes transitions take longer than we think they're going to. Like, transition being like a new school year, or we're new to homeschooling at whatever age. So there's that too.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the great things about homeschooling is that it doesn't have to be in one specific space. You can move with the kid, you can move, you can take it outside, you can take it on the road, you can, take it in your living room in front of the fireplace on a cold day, wherever that they're at. You can move it with them, and you can bring it into when they're little, you've so many other aspects of your home life. You could, one of the examples in the parent partnership meeting was fractions, like bringing it into laundry. Like, all right, we're going to fold this towel in half. Okay, now we fold it in half again. Oh, look, we have fourths, like simple, like you can bring those small moments in. You're like, well, I didn't get to math today. Oh, but I did mention it when we were doing it here, with the littles, it's not like big algebra here, but we're getting it in, in a backdoor approach. So I think that's when we're talking about littles, like there's so many opportunities to bring that homeschool experience in different ways.
Yeah.
Outside the book.
Sure. Is this a good time to talk about, like, maybe where there's a young child that you're homeschooling and then there are younger children, younger than that? Is this a good time to talk about some of those kind of complexities and some ideas around that?
I mean, I'm just kind of recalling when I had my youngest was a baby and I was homeschooling, and they just kind of fit in. I mean, I don't remember having to really do um, anything very different. I mean, I remember images of her sitting on top of my son the little one, while he was
Uh,
reading. And it was like, I mean, you have these moments where, I mean, it's just, they just kind of fit into that routine, right? And, when you have a new one and you're trying to adjust to just kind of like, especially a new baby,
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like it just, I don't know. I never had, I have to say, I've never had any difficulty incorporating, the next one coming in, or the toddler that's running around. Usually, when I'm teaching, I pull something for her to do. And, it's more of kind of managing and multitasking in that way to keep them, interested. But I mean, when you have a lot of siblings, I mean, it kind of takes care of itself, right?
yeah, Pam,
Absolutely.
are you game for saying more about kind of what it's been like for
Absolutely.
you?
It looks like different every day. I mean, we have at our house, we have our elementary kids that are working through their stuff. And then I have my toddler who's 2, and she's just wanting to be in everything with everyone, and we just kind of go with it. She joins in to the activities as much as she can, or she's creating some type of beautiful artwork mess, whatever you want to say, like somewhere else. She's learning, around us. And we just have a lot of patience and grace with her, knowing that, like we call her sometimes, I call it the beautiful tornado, because, that's kind of what it feels like some days, just the mess that kind of gets left behind, but we embrace it. We know it's not going to last forever. But I think about when one of my girls, who's now in high school, she's a freshman, when she was first starting to read, she would read to her brother who's in first grade, who loves poetry. And I commit to it that he loves poetry because that's what she would read to him when he was like in his little bouncer all the time. She would go and sit next to him and read poems. And now he loves poetry. I'm like, I
Aw,
think that there's a correlation there. So
yeah.
just that they can be involved in anything, doing activities together, doing read alouds together. We start our mornings together in our room with prayer, everybody together in prayer, um, which, the older's leading the younger ones, working on memory verses together. So having that time is wonderful. We were working on My preschooler was doing her Look and Find book with Kolbe curriculum. It's so much fun. We were looking at some artwork, and her first grade brother was like definitely like hiding in. And I kept like, Shh, let her point it out. Like let her point the differences out. So there's so much blend of learning, that goes into it. I think it's a lot of fun. And then the babies. I love seeing the older kids even bringing in their babies into class. My husband says all the time, he teaches the online now in theology, and he loves watching it, like when a baby comes in, sitting with and joining on the online class, like in their brothers or sisters' arms. It's so awesome to see, like, just that pro-life and that bond with the kids. So it's great. And that teachers embrace it. You're like, yeah, sure, come on in.
Yeah, very sweet.
Yeah.
Believe one of the techniques used in our family when we had mostly little ones with that, because you always get the little ones who are anxious to participate, like you were saying, Pam. And so I think my wife took like one of those old milk crates and put like toys and books and things that were just specifically for school time. So there became a special sort of like, okay, it's school time. Now you get to do these things. And then when school time's done, we're putting those away till the next day. But even it seemed to be effective. I mean, to some extent, at least for us. But
No, that is a great point, Stephen, because I do this year, we call them busy bags. They're like little pencil bags, and I've just put different ones, activities in them, like stickers, things that I found around my house, honestly. I didn't go out and buy a whole lot of new things, like stickers and stamps and pom-poms and just things that keep her busy for a little bit of time, like color sorting. And she's like loves them and asks for them. Can I have my busy bag? So it entertains her for a few minutes, and we just keep them for school. But definitely all my kids have their little school boxes, and she, as a toddler, wants one, just like our preschool or just like my first graders. So it's their special books, their special stuff for school being involved, even though it might look a little different.
How about when there is a mix of student ages? So like your younger elementary, they are maybe among the younger kids in the family, and you have, your homeschooling older students, high school, middle school, and younger trying to, what are some things that you remember working well for you, or what have you picked up from other folks that might help make all that balance out?
Sure. One thing that we do in my house, like I always make sure that I hit most difficult subjects first. So I always, we start off our day with reading first, and I'll bounce to each kid for reading. And then while I'm re working with a reading with one student in my house, the others are working on other independent assignments. So you're doing your handwriting, they're doing their phonics books, things that they can do on their own until it's like their turn for reading, or, specific subject work that they might need in particular for that. But one thing that I really love that worked really well last year, and then we continued it this year, is that my high schooler teaches her younger sister her math course. So I have my 12th grader teaching my third grader math, and last year, it was the other grades. And it worked out really well for them, not only just takes one thing off of my plate, but the bond between the two sisters has grown incredibly. In fact, like now we're like experiencing like the senior moments, like the younger one, what am I gonna do when she's gone next year? Like, thinking all of those things, but just that bonding, that fostering of the two of them has really come well. And the older sibling, holds her to I think even a harder line than I do some days. Like, Mom said I didn't have to do all those. Well, I said you need to do all those problems. I'm like, okay, she's your teacher. Like, so it's great to see that happen, and that helps a tremendous amount. So that's kind of cool.
Makes me think of Joe and Amy March. Joe working with
Yes,
Amy. Yep.
yes, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So my high schoolers, my seniors, they're pretty independent as far as a lot of their schoolwork. Whenever my sophomore comes to me with geometry, I'm like, you need to go ask your sister. So there are times where I do the same thing where he relies on his older sister to kind of walk him through certain subjects that I just don't have the bandwidth for. Especially when he comes to me at 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, my brain is half asleep. So I do see, just like Pam said, there's been such a growth in their bond, which has been wonderful. I mean, he's starting to interact with some of her friends that she has through Kolbe. My daughter does a lot of study sessions with her friends on, like, I think it's Google Chats or something, and they do calculus, or I don't know, the higher level math that she's in. And so he's gotten to know a lot of her friends in doing this while asking, I need some help on my geometry or whatnot. We do use the tutoring via Kolbe for my high schooler. Sometimes if he has questions on something that I just can't get to, or maybe I haven't read the book, like any of the, especially history or any of the that kind of level, I usually kind of say, hey, let's see if we have some other people that can help you with this, because it'll take me probably 2 hours to read. I mean, what you want me to read to try and help you out here. So we're going to figure out what, that's most efficient, and people who already probably have read the book and can help you with that. So usually the evenings are when, if I do have time, I sit down with my older ones. My younger ones, I usually work with in the afternoon, and I usually have most of their stuff done. And we just kind of work together. I have a third grader and a fifth grader. I know their curriculum is a little bit different, and sometimes I even ask my fifth grader if my third grader is having trouble with some math. I said, hey, I'm going into a meeting right now. Do you think you can show her how to do this? And I mean, it's actually a great teaching moment for them, and learning how to be patient with their sibling who may not understand something the way that they do. And it's kind of teaching them those skills. So, I mean, I see benefits all around when it comes to setting up it in that way. And again, it's not going to be consistently, the siblings that are helping. It's just sometimes it happens that way. And sometimes it's mom that does most of it, or dad that, hey, can you go help him, kind of stuff. It's not necessarily this rigid, like, this is who's going to help you with this, and this is the only person. You kind of have to be flexible with that.
I think there's a lot to be gained from that.
One of the things that I would experience as the kids were getting older is there's always that age in our family, at least, where it goes from everybody's kind of around generally to all of a sudden they're off, off in their quiet spot reading or working on a paper. They're always still coming back and usually working through something with mom. I always walk into the room and there they are sitting next to mom on the sofa and working through things. But yeah, they're always gets to a point where it's like, now where is so and so? Okay, they're off in their quiet spot doing work where yeah, it's always interesting to see that where it's
Yeah, that too takes some getting used to, doesn't it?
yeah.
So, Pam, you've referenced a couple times a parent partnership meeting, which is a service that the Kolbe advisors provide to the Kolbe families. Are really awesome. You guys are meeting, I think, more than monthly to address a wide array of topics, which is fantastic. And here recently, you had one on homeschooling littles. It seems like along the way, I have picked up, some folks work with their younger students first every day, and that works for their family, and then they work with their olders. Or in some families it's the reverse. They start with the olders and the youngers are outside playing or doing something else, and that is sort of their routine. Are there more things like that that have come up sort of in your discussions with the various families you serve or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I think one thing to consider is, especially with littles, is the time frame, of how long, their expectations are, or how long their attention spans are. Um, there was a great chart that was shared on one of the slides, and I can't remember the ages, but I have always remembered in my mind through teaching, age plus two is really like their attention span. So you take their age and then add 2 more minutes, and that's about as long as that they can like concentrated focus on like one particular task before like their brain like gets distracted by something else. So I think keeping that in mind, teaching and just small little increments of time for focus. And I know one work strategy that they had, or I use actually in my house a lot, is we have visual timers for work activity. So, okay, we're going to sit down and we set our visual timer for, a few minutes. And then when the timer goes off, we're going to close it and we're going to move on to something else. And it could be vice versa. All right, you get time to go play, like free time. It's Lego time. Here's our timer. The timer goes off. All right, we're going to transition back. And that's so good for both moms and kids and dads, whoever, so many times I've been distracted. I'm just going to go throw this load of laundry in. And then,
Right.
oh, let me go clean the counter and let me go do this. And then I realize, oh my, like 40 minutes has gone by, so that time management to keep everybody together, focused, refocused. And it helps, I think, our littles learn and even our bigs, what a minute feels like. What does 5 minutes feel like? That time. Because when you're little, sometimes there's a great Bluey episode if you're a Bluey's fan about how long a minute is, and and then the little finally like the whole episode goes by and she's like, was that a minute? Mom's like, yeah, okay. It was more like 30, but yes, you have no idea what time really feels like for them when they're small. So setting those, using those strategies, I think can be great um, for time,
Okay.
in conversations. Because so many times we get distracted and we go down a rabbit hole and we're like, oh, we need to come back. We need to get
Yeah.
back here.
The work expands to fill the time, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. What about you, Emmanuel? Same question or additional thoughts to that?
I mean, for younger kids, I can see the timer for sure working. For my older ones, my not middle school, they're not middle school yet, upper elementary. I usually, when they have to work independently, like usually when I'm working and they need to be doing something that's on their list of to-dos, I usually entice them with some reward. And you need to complete this, then you will get this. And that could be, sometime outside. It could be a little show that they've been wanting to watch. I mean, it could be, you know, anything with regard to that, a game they want to play or whatnot. Usually that helps. But it usually helps them focus, on what they need to do independently, because sometimes when mom's not there, they usually disappear and I have to find them like, hey, where's your stuff? I have your stack of, I usually I have a list of things that they have to do when they get out of class. I said, this is what needs to be done. This is what she can do independently. And my older one, my fifth grader, she usually can go through it herself and say, I can do this by myself, but I'm going to need mom. And she'll circle the ones and write mom. And so she's gotten to that point where she's able to figure that out. But the stuff that literally they have to do on their own that I kind of expect, like handwriting, working through certain, maybe some math problems that, they should be doing, like math facts and stuff. Those are the things that I usually set up where if you finish this, you can go do this. And because you want them to complete it. I in the way that my day is structured, because they're older, I want them to complete that assignment instead of saying, well, we'll finish it later. Because then it just kind of, for me, it just kind of piles up. I mean, it's going to be different for every family. So.
Yep. And there again, that's like you kind of learn as you go on that. You've kind of figured that out and refine it as you go along. Yeah.
It's interesting how the kids are just kind of different too. You've got like in our family, at least, we have some that are, if this is something I'm supposed to do, I'm going to get it done and I'm going to check that box off and I'm going to move on. And then there's the other ones where if you don't have an incentive to get this done, or if you don't sit down and say, you're doing this now, they will float off and be like, so did you do this today? It's like, oh no, there was this happened and then this happened. And I just didn't, it's like, okay, well, if you want this, you need to do, yeah. So it's interesting just to see how some are different motivations for each one.
I think it's, again, a highlight on the benefits of homeschooling, giving everyone their opportunity to figure out how they work so that down the road, they are like, I know this about myself. I have this tendency, or this works well for me. When there is a little bit more room to kind of sort through and find how you work well. And of course, that takes a long time, and we don't, not expecting young kids to be super like, I need, but
Yeah.
incrementally, yeah.
I think kids are really intuitive to knowing what their strengths are. Um, my first grader, handwriting is so hard for him, but he knows like, okay, I'm having a hard time today. Can you write these in yellow and I can trace them? Like, like knowing like, okay, today's a hard day, or, I need that pencil because it has a pencil grip and it helps me hold my pencil the correct way. They're pretty intuitive to knowing
That's
what they
great.
need, I think. And then, yeah, it builds up. And every kid is so different. And I think that's beautiful in the house. Seeing how everyone learns differently and embraces it is so good. And Kolbe offers so many different learning formats that we can really, help everybody.
And them knowing that will benefit them so much in so many areas of life. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Okay, what about workspaces? What do your workspaces for your younger kids look like?
I mean, each of my kids have a desk. Um, I have my daughter she's kind of, because she's a senior, she's a little more, you know, I give her more responsibility. She does her schoolwork at her desk in her room. And then I have my other three down here, so I can just kind of keep an eye on them. We're all in the kind of the living room, and I have my desk there. So I'm keeping an eye on them when they're in class. Um, I mean, they have all their books where they need to be. So we're not searching all over the house for them when we need them. And I try and teach them to be organized. I mean, that's kind of how we have it set up.
Okay. By you, Pam, at your house.
I think it varies depending on what season you are, where you're at. For us, when we first started homeschooling, we were in a nice small cozy room together with the littles, and we had like one long table and everybody. I think at that point, my oldest daughter, when we started homeschooling, was she in fourth? Yeah, she was going into fourth grade and she had her own desk, but then everybody else was like working at a table. And then, things happened and our family grew and we needed that room as a bedroom, so then it got moved to the kitchen table and we were all sitting around the kitchen table and that worked really well. And it was totally fine. And then, our family grew again and we got a new house and we got a homeschool room again, which has been fantastic. And then it's kind of grown that my older ones have their own desks and own space, but and we were back at a nice table in our room. And then because the older kids have their own space, my older elementary kids are like, we want our own desks too, So here we are, like everybody has like little desks and tables to claim their own space, but it didn't always happen that way. A lot of the times we bring our work down to the dining room table and we work there. It might be, at the end of the day and we hadn't gotten all of our stuff done. I'm like, oh, we still need to finish science, bring your textbook down. We're going to sit on the couch, at nighttime, like we finish that up. So it kind of moves, it ebbs and flows depending on where we're at. You know, whatever works for people, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, when the kids get older, like you were saying, when they need their own desk, they need their own space for something. Then at the beginning of the year, I always see my wife going up and taking a shelf and putting all of their books for the school year on that shelf. But before that time, there was always like the milk crate or something. It's like the books go in here. These are our school books. It doesn't always work. There's still the like, where is your math book? And well, it's under that pile of mail on the table. We find out, 45 minutes later or the next day or whatever. But at least you're starting out with a good starting point where you know where your things are and know where to put them when you're done and things. So that yeah, it changes through the ages too.
Yep. So I think a lot of folks are surprised when they are homeschooling younger students to find out how long it takes, or doesn't, more accurately, when they think about the amount of workload, to use that word, uh, what a typical workload is for a young student. Do you want to say a bit about that and any other related thoughts on the workload for the younger students, maybe the time involved?
I mean, it varies for us. I mean, I don't really have a time lot because we kind of, I mean, they have their on my two younger ones are doing the online program, and so they're in class for 2 hours in the morning, I think, hour and a half. I mean, they're done. They start at 8:40 and they're done by 10:45. So about 2 hours and or 11, depends. And then they have a list of things to do. And I mean, because we do it so randomly throughout the afternoon, I can't really give you a time on how long. It feels like it takes forever because we're like constantly, are you done with your work? Are you done with your work? But they take a lot of breaks. So, I can't give you a time. I don't know.
That's a good point. It's like, it's not just sit down and do this work start to finish until it's all done. That doesn't work well really for anybody.
No.
But and so it does make it difficult to kind of quantify, like, how much time does this take? Well, if we were to do that, it doesn't take as long as we tend to think it does.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. It feels like it takes forever because we're still doing an assignment at, 8 o'clock at night that we should have done in the afternoon, but instead they were playing outside for 2 hours.
Which is
So
also important. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
important. It's important to have those brain breaks and get some physical activity and stuff like that. So
Okay.
anyways.
Yeah.
I think, for so many of us, since homeschooling is, you know, become more prominent within the last probably 20, 25 years, and even not even that far for where it's really become. A lot of us just have that schooling experience. It's like, okay, get in there at 8:20 and you're working until 3 something, but so people are new to it. I think often think it should take 8 hours. We should be working consistently, but when there's so much just extra time built into a brick and mortar environment, that if you were just to, I mean, it's going to happen at Kolbe by the time you get to high school that they're going to be putting in the 8 hours, definitely. But when you've got the little ones, I mean, that would just be insane, really. It would be like, why are you doing this to your child? To just get them, no, just play, get these things done and then play. It shouldn't take, I mean, yeah, it shouldn't take that, because I think even if your child is struggling at those young ages, I mean, probably it's much, in my opinion, it's probably worse for them to be completely beat down and burnt out by being forced to work that long, rather than just saying, you know what, we're just going to strip this down, make it easier. We'll focus on these things and then get out and building. We got time. We're not going to college next year. We've got time.
That's exactly it. I think my preschooler, we this morning right before lunch, she's like, all right, I can do my stuff. It took her like 15 minutes. Like, we went through the pictures. That was it. Same thing with my first grader this morning. He actually wasn't sitting at his desk. He wanted to sit at my desk. And I was like, okay, let's go with it, and so he got all of his work done, probably in a good like hour. Like he just focused and boom, like plus, through it all. So I think it depends on the day and the activities and that focus where they're at in those moments.
Yeah, I think Pam, like you were indicating as well, there's so many things that you do in your household as a homeschooling family,
Hmm.
whether it's folding the laundry, helping with making food, listening to a story, or these are all things that you would do that you have to artificially do in a schoolroom, but you're
Hmm.
just learning them
Naturally.
when you embrace that as
Yep.
in a homeschooling situation.
Hmm.
That's all school. It
Yep.
all
Yep,
counts.
that counts.
Even
Yeah.
playing outside, like that's
Yes.
school. That's,
Yeah.
that's beyond recess. It's science. It's, physical
Yes.
activity, PE, like everything. So,
See new bugs and sticks and
yep.
leaves and yeah.
There's so much
Sorry.
there.
Yep,
Yep.
so true. We started homeschooling, my eldest was going into seventh grade, my youngest was going into second grade. They had been in parochial school before then, so they were accustomed to a school day schedule. And we found at that beginning that was that term grace period that I used earlier. I I really took to that for that first year of like, this is our grace period. We're going to figure this out. But one thing that did help us was to have a hard stop into the school day at that time where they were age wise, grade wise. There needed to be like, okay, we're done with school for the day at this point. And that, of course, has kind of been, that has blurred away. We don't have that anymore with everybody being, my youngest is a sophomore now. So they're working longer than that. But at that earlier point, it was very helpful to have that hard stop. So that might be helpful to folks. I don't know.
Yeah. It's one of those like at Kolbe, we certainly haven't we had a lot of just kind of rolling things, but some of my kids started doing the online classes in particular, and it's like, oh, this is finals week, and now we're done for 3 weeks. It was like I remember that first experience of a Christmas break, and because I had experienced that, at a public school or whatever. It's like, oh, we're done for a week, but they were the first time they realized that, they're going to read and stuff, other things, but it's like, I don't have to do these things now. They were just the joy of that. And so it, so yeah, we talk about the mercy of deadlines, but because I think certainly for me and for a lot of families, I think you're aimed at this sort of perfection, which is unrealistic. Otherwise, if you don't kind of just say, that's good enough. That's all we need to do. Could it be better? Yeah, absolutely. But we don't have to be perfect here. We've got life going on, So I think with the things that you've talked about, all the different keeping things in the right focus and working with, family as a whole, I think it's something we just have to remind ourselves. Deadlines can be good. Stopping and just having it be good enough is okay.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you wanted to make sure that we talked about when we're thinking about homeschooling littles? And not maybe not so school specific, but life happening all around that or with, interwoven.
Well, I mean, the one thing that I would advise families, moms, dads to do is to make sure that you have a good strong prayer life with your kids. And I think that's what, um, for many, many years kind of got me through the beginning stages of homeschooling and encouraging me that you're doing the right thing, you're trucking along, you're getting there, and there's a greater purpose to this. And I think that's what kept me grounded. Like this is it's keeping me rooted here. There's a reason I'm doing this. I love my kids. I feel so blessed that God has given them to me, and this is my mission in life. And um, I will work as hard as I can to get them to that point. And I think that just that prayer component with your family, just to kind of stop if things get too hectic or it seems too hard, just to stop and just say, I give this to you, Lord. Help me out. I know I'm not perfect. I think that's something that I think families should remember to really incorporate in their day, for when they tackle this whole new homeschooling, if they're, new to homeschooling or whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Very important. What do you think, Pam?
I think, similar to what Emmanuel said, bringing God into it. Like he's the one who brought this before you, that there's a reason for it and just, yeah, embrace it, develop your strong prayer focus and just know that every day or every season, every year, it's not going to look the same. It's a journey, it's going to change. And that's the beauty of it is that you can change and grow. Um, and, the just always come back to like why did you say yes to God to bringing you to homeschooling? Because there's definitely many times that we've wanted to throw one, or I have wanted to throw in the towel, and then I see my older girls snuggling up with their younger siblings, and I just think, wow, if they weren't home together, this wouldn't happen. Like they wouldn't have these beautiful bonds that they do with each other. So they would be separated in different classrooms. They wouldn't see each other all day. And, I'm just so grateful that God has brought us together to be able to do that. And He continues to provide for us no matter what so that we can homeschool because there's many different ways that you can do it. So.
In our family, dinner time has become a big focal point too. I mean, I guess because especially as we get the wider range and some are going off to do these things. And so we don't tend to have a uniform single breakfast time or a uniform single lunch time, but everybody comes there and we're sitting down for dinner. So it's in addition to the time you can spend with prayer, it's another collecting point, coming back together as a family and sharing a meal and sharing conversation. And sometimes it's goofy, sometimes it's really profound, but it's you get the whole range too. So some of the little ones are getting intrigued because they're seeing their older siblings discussing this book that they read with us or with each other, and they want to participate in that too. So it gives them a something to aim for, and an example of what that might look like as they're older too. So that's been good for us at least.
Yeah, that's neat. All right. Well, this has been a really wonderful conversation with you, Pam and Emmanuelle. We really appreciate you taking the time with us to share your experience and your thoughts and encouragement and guidance. Our show notes are going to have links to some related Kolbecast episodes and other useful information. So head there to find out more after finishing this. And we look forward to the next time we get to visit with you guys. Thanks again for coming.
Well, welcome. It was fun.
Welcome. Yeah.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad maiorem Dei gloriam.